Welcome to the Razors Inc. podcast with your host, Jonathan Farini. In 1992, James Foley directed a film based on a Pulitzer Prize-winning play with an all-star cast including Jack Lemmon, Ed Harris, Kevin Spacey, Al Pacino, and one unforgettable cameo by Alec Baldwin. All the makings for a box office smash, right? Would it surprise you then to find out that the movie was a box office dud, failing to even make back the production cost? Pour yourself a drink, pull up a chair, and hear Jonathan's take on movies, television, and today, a character study of the film that the cast lovingly referred to as Death of a Salesman. Here's your host, Jonathan Farini.
Hey, welcome to the Razors Inc. podcast. So why do I do this podcast? I do this podcast because I want to share interesting thoughts that come to me in the hopes that they might resonate with you or cause you to think about film differently or similarly or in any way that appeases you. So these are just nuggets of information I'm passing on to you because I find them interesting. When I wake up, I don't wake up to an alarm clock and then run to the shower and then, start my day. I addressed a symposium in London. It was a Jungian thing, and they talked about what I call the golden hour. And the golden hour is the moment that you wake up. And the golden hour is something that you should treasure, particularly if you're a creative person, because that's when the stardust or the memory dust is still bouncing about your brain and your subconscious, and it's starting to settle like dust. And you want to try to vacuum that up. And the way you do that is by sitting in bed with your coffee or your tea. You don't put your phone on, you don't put the radio, the television. You just lay there and you enjoy this golden hour. And you will be surprised when you put this into practice if you're a creative or if you're anybody. It's a reflective moment that is really, really precious. And if you try it or if you know what I'm talking about, I don't need to belabor the point. But recently, oftentimes I'll wake up in the morning with dialogue, storyline racing out of my head, and I'll have to run and write it down because it'll be lost forever, because it's the product of your subconscious, a gift that we have as humans. I don't know if animals have it, but as humans, it's that dream factory mechanism that we all have. And if you're not a creative, you can use this subconscious material in your vocation or in your relationship, what have you. But I was thinking a lot about a character named Ricky Roma in a movie that I adore called Glengarry, Glen. I'm going to get into the weeds now about some dialogue. So listen, if you haven't seen the movie, if you've seen the movie and you didn't like it, just go down to the registrar's office right now and drop this course, okay? I understand there's a course called The Serialization of Superheroes in American Motion Pictures, which you might enjoy. Or there's another course called The Decline and Fall of American Television, 1957 to the present day, which you should see. And, if that bums you out, you can check me out in my office hours, and I'll talk to you about the glory days of television and give you some hope. Well, I don't know if I can give you some hope, but I can tell you about when television was really something else. So that being said, if there's anybody left here, I presume you're nerds and geeks, or you have a natural curiosity about learning something. Listen, I am not a philosopher. I am not a psychologist. So I'm not going to get into the various definitions of nihilism. But essentially, it boils down to, hey, to a nihilist, life is meaningless. It has no meaning. And I was thinking a lot about the Ricky Roma character in Glengarry, Glen, and asked myself, was Ricky a nihilist? And I came to the conclusion that he might be. So let me set this up for you. Okay, so this is the scene in the Chinese restaurant. Brilliant, an old school Chinese restaurant, which happens to be empty. I've been in these. I know what they're like. They're just wonderful. Oh my God, they're just wonderful environments to permit a scene like this to occur. And it happens to be raining outside. So Ricky Roma meets up with Jonathan Pryce, who plays this guy named James Link. Now, either Ricky sizes this guy up as being a fellow nihilist or sizes him up as being somebody who needs to be preyed upon. And there's a dialogue that ensues.
They say it was so hot downtown this afternoon. Grown men on the street corner were going up to cops, begging the cops to shoot them. They say you should not drink alcohol when it's so hot.
Who says that?
Something I read. For they say it dehydrates you. They say you should drink water. But I subscribe to the law of contrary public opinion. If everyone thinks one thing, then I say bet the other way.
Added to which you know they're wrong.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm going to read some dialogue to you that suggests a strong sense of nihilism or nihilism in Ricky Roma. And I want to believe that it's actually Ricky who's the nihilist, because of what he says.
All train compartments smell vaguely of It gets so you don't mind it. When you die, you're going to regret the things you don't do. You think you're queer? I'm going to tell you something. We're all queer. You think you're a thief? So what? You get befuddled by a middle-class morality. Get shut of it. Shut it out. You cheat on your wife? You did it. Live with it. There's an absolute morality? Maybe. And then what? If you think there is, go ahead. Be that thing. Bad people go to hell? I don't think so. You think that? Act that way. A hell exists on Earth? Yes. I won't live in it. That's me. Great meals fade in reflection. Everything else gains. You know why? Because it's only food.
There's a lot of, in my opinion, beliefs that Ricky holds firmly in these lines. Otherwise, they wouldn't come out the way they did. This is my opinion. I don't believe an adroit salesman going for the jugular, even sizing up Jonathan Pryce the way Ricky did, could come up with this stuff unless he believed it. Now, you might say, oh, what about the Cadillac car? That proves you wrong. Ricky was upset about losing the contest and losing the Cadillac car. Therefore, he is not a nihilist. My response to you is, if you listen to Ricky talk about the Cadillac car, that's just it. He refers to it as a Cadillac car. Not that Cadillac car that's going to replace the Buick he was driving. And by the way, he was driving a Buick. Not about that Cadillac car. You know, I need that car. I need something with pizzazz. It's going to show I'm a successful salesman. Oh, it's going to boost my sales. Oh, I've been wanting that. He says nothing like that. He refers to it as a Cadillac car.
Link. James Link, which I closed last night.
You closed it last night?
Yes.
I filed it. It went down.
You filed it. James Link.
Yes.
It was sent downtown.
Yes, all right. I filed it last night. It went to the bank. It went downtown, all right?
You filed it, and I'm over the top. You owe me a Cadillac.
I don't think...
I don't want to hear any, and I don't give a... Link puts me over the top. You filed it. It went downtown. Now you owe me the car.
The robbery makes difficult.
You owe me the car. See? Because this is how we keep score, booby. You told me close thus, and so you get the car. I got it.
He's ticked off because he's going to lose the contest. And he was the top man, and he was going to win the car, but that's all it is a contest. In other words, it's meaningless to Ricky. That's what I contend. And then you might say James Link, played by Jonathan Pryce, he's this browbeaten, maybe cuckolded husband, the wife has a strong person. We never know the wife. We're never introduced to her. But we don't need to be, because we learn a lot about the dynamics of that marriage. Evidently, Ricky sold the land to James and his wife in some subsequent off-screen meeting. But the wife changed her mind. And there's a suggestion maybe Ricky's persona maybe persuaded her too. But anyway, she sends the husband, Jonathan Pryce, back to Ricky to cancel the contract. And Jonathan Pryce's character shows he's unable to do that.
Monday. I'll take you to lunch. Where would you like to eat?
My wife's...
Ray! I can't talk now, Jim. I'll call you tonight, all right? Sorry. I'm coming, Ray.
My wife said I have to cancel a deal.
It's a common reaction, Jim. And let me tell you what it is, and I know that that's why you married her. One of the reasons is prudence. No, it's a sizable investment. One thinks twice. It's also something women have. Reaction to the size of the investment. Monday.
She called the consumer, the attorney, I don't know, the attorney general. They said we have 3 days.
Who'd she call?
The attorney, it was some consumer office.
Why'd she do that, Jim?
I don't know. No, but they said we have 3 days. They said we got 3 days, yeah.
3 days?
To, you know.
No, I don't know. Tell me.
Well, to change our minds.
I think an argument could be made that even James Link was a nihilist. He was in the bar sitting by himself. Life looked meaningless to him. Nothing mattered until Ricky Roma came along and started parroting James Link's feelings. And then dropped in this way out of nihilism, and that was Glengarry, Glen Ross Highlands.
I'm glad I met you, James. I want to show you something. It may mean something to you. It may not. I don't know. I don't know anymore. What is that? Florida. Glengarry Highlands. Florida. And maybe that's true. And that's what I said. But look at this. What is this? This is a piece of land. Listen to what I'm going to tell you now.
As portrayed within this glossy brochure. And the way Ricky goes in for the close. Now listen to what I'm going to tell you. Listen, I just throw this out to you as something to think about. You know, whenever you're listening to dialogue, particularly when the camera is in close and there's just two people talking to each other, go back and look at a movie called My Dinner with Andre. Came out in the early 80s. It's just two guys sitting in a restaurant talking about stuff.
See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished. And that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, and that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing. And there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.
When you are watching well-written dialogue, maybe a lot of it's improv. Okay, I would like to know how much of Pacino's dialogue was improv and how much was written. You know, in the case of David Mamet, I'm going to err on the side that it was written, because I've watched a lot of YouTube video with David Mamet rehearsing actors, and I know how important dialogue is to him. So that's what I'm going to suggest, that it was written. Or if it was improvised, it was improvised with David's consent. But whenever you're watching that kind of dialogue, it's a privilege. Enjoy it, drink it up. Go back and watch it again and again and again and see what you learn from it. Okay, what does it teach you about yourself, about life, about philosophy, about anything? Look at it under a microscope. Pick it up like it's in a rug. What do you find underneath the rug? What does it suggest about what's going on in your own mind, who you are, who you're not? This is just a habit that came up with me. I came out of a group of guys, small group of guys, where, we would get hung up in dialogue. So, we'd memorize the Godfather movies from beginning to end and recite dialogue to each other. I know it sounds insane in a coffee shop. Or another favorite was Apocalypse Now.
I watched a snail crawl along the edge of a straight razor.
I remember Martin Sheen talking about this character on the gunboat, and the dialogue goes,
Clean. Mr. Clean was from some South Front hole, and I think the light and the space of Vietnam really put the zap on his head.
And of course, there's the
Terminate. The Colonel.
Terminate with extreme prejudice.
everybody seems to get that one, but it's all the other dialogue which is fascinating. But it just kind of sticks with me and a group of people where we would enjoy going over this stuff over and over and over again. I don't know why. Maybe it speaks to me and my friends, our own mental well-being. But here's the episode. Take out of it what you will. You can agree with me, disagree. But what I hope you do is, when you're faced with wonderful dialogue, when the camera is up close and personal and you're eavesdropping on this, it's an opportunity, it's an invitation from the writer, from the filmmaker, from the playwright to listen carefully, savor each word, and then go back and think about it. It's an invitation. All right. And that's what I hope you get out of this. Listen, be good to yourself. And wherever you go, leave a small footprint. Until I see you next time, class is dismissed.
So while Glengarry Glen Ross was a disappointment at the box office, it can safely be said that the movie has gone on to become one of the most cherished examples of dialogue ever set to the big screen. One of the movie's stars, Alan Arkin, even said in an interview how often the cast would show up on set, even when they weren't scheduled, just to see the other actors' performances. And remember,
coffee's for closers only.
You've been listening to the Razors Inc. podcast with Jonathan Farini. Be sure to check out Jonathan's collection of fiction at jonathanfarini.com. Also, look for Jonathan's short story, The Bel Air Inside the Bog, in which a retired English teacher learns of a rumor about two missing students and seeks to solve the 50-year-old puzzle. Already published in the most recent edition of Egophobia magazine, it's been published again in the most recent edition of Mobius, the Journal for Social Change. You'll find it at mobiusmagazine.com and at jonathanfarini.com. Or drop an email to razorsincpodcast@gmail.com.